Europe. We also know. Okay, then I would like first of all to welcome the speakers and also welcome to all of you behind the screens at your house. Then I would like to introduce our two participants. First, Maria, you are in Lisbon, so we are happy to see you here in Denmark. And you have both been very active on European labor market policy. Maria João Rodrigues was a full professor of economy in Portugal and Minister of Employment in Portugal in the Guterres government. And she was also the MEP who was rapporteur on the social pillar in the European Parliament in 2017. And you voted in Strasbourg, I think, in February 2017, because I saw you on the Portuguese television this morning 4 years ago. And now you are president of the European think tank Foundation of European Progressive Studies. Maria, welcome, warmly welcome to the debates in New Europe, that in Danish called Nyt Europa. Bente Sovnfrey, our other participant, has been a trade union leader for many years, as long as I can remember. You were the trade union leader of the childcare workers. And childcare workers is a big trade union in Denmark because since the 70s we have had full childcare, both for the very small, before 1 year old and up to the school. So you have a lot of members in that union. And then you became General Secretary of the Confederation in Denmark of Medium-Skilled Workers, I will call it. So Maria, now you have to listen, because the Danish trade union is organized horizontally and not vertically, as you see in other European countries. So here you are organized according to your skills. So we have a confederation with non-skills, low skills, confederation with medium skills, and a confederation with university level. So in the same workplace, you have different confederation. But then a few years ago, the two of the big confederation, they merged. And Bente, you became vice president of a confederation with 1.3 million members. It's very, very big in Denmark. It's 25% of the population, 1.3 million members. And for many years, you have also been the vice chair of ETUC, the European Trade Union Confederation, and you are still in ETUC, and you follow the European labor markets. If we need to know about skilling in your confederation, we have all kinds of skills, and we also, trade union in Denmark, participate very heavily in the skilling of the people. In the Porto summit, we reached an agreement. Actually, there were two agreements. There was Porto's social commitments, where the labor market partners to also participated, and then there was a Porto Declaration, and they agreed that member states should reach an employment rate at 78%. It's very high, more high for some countries than others. I think Denmark is a little bit lower, but more or less. And then second, at least 60% of Europeans participating annually in training and basic skillings for digital skills, 80%, and finally social inclusion and reducing the number of people living in poverty with at least 15 million in 2030. And these are very, very high targets because the social dimension should now be an integrated part with its own targets and measures, and it should be the center of European policy. It was also decided, and of course be based on gender equality and on social dialogue, which we use very much in the Nordic countries. And now we have 2021, and I remember in 1986 that the former president of the Commission, the French socialist Jacques Delors, he said, when the internal market was approved in 1986. Now it's time for the social Europe, but we have waited for many years, and it really, I hope that now it will be a reality. But first of all, so Bente, I would like to ask you about your opinion from the Danish trade union perspective and the European perspective of what you think about the summit.
Thank you very much, Britta, and thank you for having the opportunity to be here in this meeting. I follow the summit very closely because there's something we are afraid of when we discuss it in Europe. Minimum wages as an example, and other things, because we have the Danish labor market model. So we are a little bit afraid of a lot of things. So, but I think when I heard the speeches on the summit, there was a common understanding that we need to do something about the social Europe. We will have a more fair and social Europe for all, and it's very needed in the light of the pandemic. So I listened very carefully when I heard a lot of the speakers said that we need a strong social contract, we need social dialogue to overcome the pandemic and secure a more socially Europe. And it was very good, and I think there was a lot of focus on skills, as Britta mentioned. We need to have new skills for those who had been unemployed, and to overcome the digital and climate changes. And I thought a lot of the speakers mentioned that, and I think that the goals who were set up for the summit was were very good to reach some of the things we have in the European pillar of social rights. But of course we are Danes, and of course we have some problems, as I mentioned, because of our labor market, and therefore we had said that we don't need a lot of legislation in Denmark to overcome these problems we have in Europe. We need to have the pillar as a compass showing how the member state could work to be more social, and we hope that the principles of the pillar and the social scoreboard can be used as a level to establish a constructive workers' agenda, because we need it and we need it through the European semester. We see the action plan as a key creating a more socialized and more just and fair Europe, and it's very needed for us. I think there was a very lot of common sense about that we need to make some action now. Of course, there are different point of views, but I think that a lot of the speeches at the summit point out what are the problem in Europe, and we need a more democratic Europe. We need a more fair Europe for workers and citizens, and I think the action plan will ensure that. But I also must say that we don't want, in Denmark, we don't want EU legislation, but we can see we could go very far if we use the principles in the pillar and implement them in our European work, and I hope we will do that. The green transition and future skills are required, and I heard it was very much required, and we need that security for our members, for citizens in Europe, so we don't have a lot of yellow vests in a lot of our countries, as we had seen it in France. It is not good for developing a more social Europe. So I think the work on the summit, I think it was successful, and of course I was listening very carefully if there was something about minimum wages. I heard them all say fair wages, and of course we should have fair wages, and I don't think the minimum wage discussion, it would have destroyed some of the good intention that was at the summit. So I think it should be first from me now. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Bente. And then, Maria, I would like to ask you, well, first of all, your Prime Minister, in his concluding remark, he said that the summit has been a success. And also it was front page in the Portuguese newspapers. And do you think it is the same? I mean, you made the social pillar in the parliament, you were rapporteur, and you followed later the Gothenburg meeting during the Swedish presidency. What's your opinion about what we achieved in Porto?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, this is really a great pleasure for me to have this opportunity to discuss with Danish friends the outcome of Porto just 2 days after. And to have this talk driven by Britta Thompson, who is a very qualified expert on how to drive talks across Europe. She has a very acute comparative sense. It is great really to have this talk today. Look, I will reply to you by saying, as Bent just told, that all in all, this was a successful summit. I was there physically and I could sense a good atmosphere, I would say, with all the partners involved, from social partners, first of all, civil society, on the top of the usual politicians, I mean, representing the governments, the European institutions, and we got the impression that there is a large range of actors being mobilized for this initiative called Social Pillar. So all in all, I'm pleased with this. But now let me use the opportunity, because I'm here really to have a good talk with you and the debate, and let's discuss whatever we want to discuss. And I'd like to say something for you. Britta knows me very well, but for everybody to understand how I think, let me start by saying that I'm a deep admirer of the Nordic model. And I work with the Nordic model in different facets. The Danish one, because I was working so closely with your former Prime Minister, Poul Rasmussen, for many years. And then also work with the Finnish variant, and then the Swedish, and so on. But all in all, I'm a deep admirer, because in the end, this is the model I'd like to have in Europe. I would like to say it very clear. So a model able to deliver high job creation and good jobs, connecting with innovation, with providing better services, better products, preparing people with skills, and then ensuring that we have universal access to public services, social protection, also designed in a sustainable way. And also, last point, a strong concern with equality between women and men. So these features for me are really the guiding principles for me. And I must tell you that I'm sorry, I will come to Porto Summit, but I cannot resist in 1 minute to refer to the previous moments. Because when the Nordic models, the Nordic countries joined the European Union, in a certain moment, I was Minister of Employment in Portugal. And I can never forget that they were bringing a new message, a new approach. And by that time, I worked a lot with, in fact, with Alan Larson to make sure that we had something new called European Employment Strategy in the 90s, which I consider very closely inspired from the Nordic models. And I remember that the Nordic ministers were key actors of this operation. This was in the 90s, okay? Then the turn of the century, with Guterres, when I was Minister Guterres, we concluded that we should use the opportunity to go further and to discuss about a comprehensive development strategy. Focusing on innovation, on sustainable development, on better jobs, and this was the Lisbon strategy. And again, the Nordic model for me was the central inspiration. Okay. My dream, a bit provocative, would be, of course, I know that we have different social models in Europe, but to find a way for a certain convergence, upward convergence, strongly inspired from the Nordic model. This was, in fact, the purpose of the so-called Lisbon strategy. But then we had a big problem, and the big problem was the financial crisis, which then, as you know, turned into a Eurozone crisis. So it was a very painful period. And all of a sudden, many countries could no longer have the conditions to implement this strategy. On the contrary, they were undermining basic social conditions and working conditions, sacrificing basic pieces of the welfare system. So this was dramatic, and it was exactly in the middle of this big shock that we came to the conclusion that we need to come with something strong, which is the European social pillar, or the European pillar of social rights. Let's not forget, this pillar was invented to stop this very dangerous downward spiral, destroying welfare systems in many countries. And then it was really great to have, it was not easy again, to have Gothenburg Summit, because as you probably know, many governments were against, and we could only overcome this resistance by showing a large majority which we could bring in the European Parliament. We could have 5 political groups. So when I went to the negotiating with the Council of Ministers, I said, look, you are divided, but we are united. We have a large majority in the European Parliament, and you want this pillar. So, and I believe these 20 principles adopted in Gothenburg are in fact a kind of compass. So Bente used this word, and I completely agree with her. Yes, this is a kind of compass with key priorities, not only for workers, I must say, it's for the entire population. Because as you know, we have priorities for children, for young people, for senior citizens. So this is really a comprehensive agenda. Now, I jump into Porto commitment and then declaration. From my viewpoint, the 3 targets which are there are good targets. One about job creation, another one about skills, another one by tackling poverty. Second, we have in fact measures for all the groups. All the target groups are covered somehow. So it's a very comprehensive, inclusive agenda. It's for everybody. Then, how to deliver this? Well, I would say the main instrument will be the European semester, involving all the relevant policies, employment, education, anti-poverty, social protection, and so on. And of course, we need to make sure that the financial instruments, either the European ones or the national ones, because national budgets still play the central role, should be aligned with these priorities. And then we have the final issue, which is what is the role of, let's say, a soft law and hard law, okay? And I know this is sometimes the sensitive issue. And let me put things like that. Whenever member states are able to move forward with these priorities by using social dialogue, collective bargaining, this is ideal. Let me tell you clearly, this is the best way. And I know that Nordic models are extremely powerful and sophisticated about how to organize very precise social dialogue and collective bargaining. So this should be encouraged and never, never be undermined. Okay, for me, this is extremely clear. Nevertheless, we have a problem, is that in some member states, we don't have such a powerful process of collective bargaining. So what should we do? Because if we do nothing, the risk you are back into divergences, into unfair competition, into social dumping. So that's when we need to have some European directives. And I will conclude with a concrete question, because in fact, this is something I'd like to discuss with you, is about now we are preparing the recovery plans. This is important to deal with the pandemics, to launch the recovery, very important. And it's also very important to shape the green transition and the digital transition. I know very well that, again, Denmark is extremely advanced in this transition to a green economy and digital economy. That's why I'd like to conclude with a question mark I have for myself, is in the digital area, platform work. I believe that we Europeans, we need to find a way to make sure that everybody working for platforms, and now even more, a lot of people in telework, should count on 2-3 basic things, everybody. So let's say a real and decent labor contract, a regular access to upskilling, third, access to social protection. I think this is extremely important, because if we start having thousands, in fact, millions of people working for platforms who don't have a contract, who don't have access to reskilling, and they don't contribute and benefit from social protection, we are creating extremely dangerous situation, because our welfare systems will, their financial bases will be undermined, having millions of people who don't contribute for social protection, and they will be exposed to many risks without any protection. So we need to find a way to cope with this. And that's why you see in the Porto Declaration and references to in fact, this is in the action plan more precisely, the need to have a directive on platform work. So this is a very concrete issue, but is a good, I will conclude like that, a good concrete issue we can discuss about. Because probably you find a way to deal with this in Denmark with collective bargaining, but I'm afraid this is not the case in other countries. So I'm sorry I was a bit long, but...
Oh, no, it's fine. We are happy to have you here with us. Thank you very much, Maria. It was very interesting. Also, what you told about your history with the Nordic model and the final things with the platform workers, because actually I remember now another directive, also the Danish trade union was a little bit skeptical, but the issue was not so big here as in Southern Europe, and it was the directive on the seasonal workers in the countrysides that was coming every year. We made actually a European directive there. But you said you knew that we have different systems, social systems, and Nicholas Smith, he said the same in his speech. He said we have different systems, but we have the same targets. So I was wondering, when I was in the European Parliament, I worked a lot with renewable energy, and we put up targets, told Italy, you have to achieve 20%. Okay, 20%. Berlusconi called the European Parliament and he asked, can I get it from Gaddafi? Yes, no problem where you get it from. You just have to achieve the target. And this was the same for everyone. You have to achieve the target. So the targets, we have put up the 3 targets, could in some countries be achieved with one model and another model in the other countries. And there I see it's difficult to make a directive. But your prime minister, he says today, or he said yesterday, we could have a Europe in more speeds. And he said the euro is within the Lisbon Treaty, the Schengen is within the Lisbon Treaty, and I was thinking, does he think about minimum wage for some countries and not for others? And we could solve it in that way. What do you think?
Look, now you are putting the focus on the minimum wage.
Yes, because
I would argue that, in fact, I completely understand why in the Danish model you don't need a minimum wage set by legal action, because you have a much more precise and sophisticated way to set wages and to make them improve, which is collective bargaining. This is the ideal method, because this is adapted to the different situations. Nevertheless, I'm pretty sure if you think about Eastern countries, and I can tell you, even Portugal, if we don't have a minimum wage set according to a tripartite method, so employers and trade unions plus public entities, the balance of power is such that we'll have a big share of workers in a situation which is a situation of working poor. People who have hard work, they can even have a stable job, but the wage they get is not enough to have a decent life. And I'm pretty sure of this as a Minister of Labor. So that's why we need to have a public action in a tripartite. So this is to be discussed, of course, with the trade unions and employers. It's not imposed alone by governments or parliament, but in such a way that to create a dynamics to improve wage and to push for productive improvements, because of course wage is dependent from productivity gains. We are not saying we have the same minimum wage for everybody in Europe. This is out of question. This should be reflecting the conditions for productivity. And we need to create a positive dynamic about this. And in some countries, I can tell you, if you don't have a minimum wage set in the tripartite scheme, these dynamics will not happen. And we'll have a big share of people living as working poor. This is the problem we have.
This is true. I followed the minimum wage in the UK in 1998 when it was introduced, and also in Germany. But we have, as we have discussed, another model here. But then, Bente, what do you think about this discussion? Could you imagine that we have minimum wage part of an EU directive only covering some countries and not other countries?
Maybe if it's possible, but when we ask lawyers on that, they say that it is impossible because of the charter, and we can have a situation where we are not a part of the same directive. But let us see, we discuss it. We try to find some solutions so we could be a part of it, all of us. But right now, it's not easy to see it. And I will say about minimum wages that we have seen around Europe that the minimum wages has been not a flaw as it was meant to be, but a roof. And a lot of my colleagues from Bulgaria and Romania and so on, they are very unhappy with the directive because there's no level of minimum wage in it. And I don't think there could be a level because there's the employers have and the governments have thought about it, and therefore I don't think we will overcome the problem with a minimum wage directive. We have discussed some other things about public procurement, and I heard it was also a part of the discussion at the summits, public procurement, where you could have the clauses and through the clauses have good wages conditions and working conditions. So I think there's other ways that we could go, because I'm also afraid if we have a big price on 10 years and so on, what about if all have minimum wages in their country? Would the government threw the wages down, as we saw it under the last economic and finance crisis, that they used the tool not to give people more wages but lower wages. In Denmark, we fixed it as partners because we have dialogue about it, and if the competition at our firms and fabrics and so on was going down, then we fixed it on the local level, and I think we overcome it on a better way with our system, and I had hoped that we could use more time to make capacity building on the social dialogue. I heard a lot of word about it, and I hope it will overcome and have some concrete results, because I think it's much better to have this social dialogue and the capacity building among in the European countries. So you can hear we don't like the directive, but we like to have fair wages in Europe, and think we could have other tools to overcome that. The public procurement as an example.
Yeah, I think there are many ways, and I also think I agree with both of you that we have a special model that is good for the Nordic countries, but as Maria said, they have problem in other countries. And I actually can tell you that Francisco Franco introduced the minimum wage in Spain in 1970 because the workers was being too heavily exploited. And of course, it's a protection. But I think it's also an interesting point you have been when you say, but who is going to decide the level of the minimum wage? Is that a government, a reactionary government that can cut wages down? Or should we leave this important thing into the government? Or there are many aspects, so we need to discuss that. And perhaps we will see to step to speech EU in that level. But I think it was also very interesting what you said, Maria, about the platform workers, because we need to discuss that in all of Europe. We have tried to make collective agreements here in Denmark, as far as I know, but they are not far from all covered. We have little time left, and there are people that would like to take the floor and have some questions and comments. And one of them is Sten Gade. He was the founder of Nyt Europa, New Europe. And Sten, you were a member of the Danish Parliament for 28 years or something for the Socialist Workers' Party. And you are what we can call the green man in the Parliament. You have been working on greening since the 80s. Now I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving the chance to listening here. I think the Porto meeting is and should be the step forward for a really more social Europe, because we need it. And I was happy to listen to Maria Rodriguez telling the story behind, and that shows that we are behind. We should have been in this discussion 10 or 15 years ago, at least. But due to the crisis, we had a backlash, and now we have the chance. And what I'm a bit afraid of is that this discussion between the Nordic model and other model could stop the process. And I want you to comment a bit about it, because in my humble opinion, it should be possible to have a combination of minimum wages decided in a Nordic model and then sent to the parliament and then being by law. But my question to you, that was a comment, but my question to you both is about this directive on platform jobs, because I think in many ways, I want to hear if you agree that this is very linked to minimum wages and the risk that we will have working poor, cross border working poor, and as I see it, platform workers can sit in Denmark and work in Portugal, and therefore I think there is a strong need to have legislation here on a European level. And my question is, do Bente agree on the need for regulations or also directives here? And Maria, do you understand really that there is this problem between the Nordic and other models? I know you have big respect of the Nordic model, but do you see the problem seen from your side?
Thank you, Sten, very much. Bente, will you ask the question, do you think there is a need for a directive for platform workers in Europe?
We are discussing it right now because it is a huge problem. I agree with what Maria said. We have big problems with platform workers. We try to organize them here in Denmark, and I the discussion goes on different levels, but we have one discussion about, are they employees or are they not? Are they self-employed or are they employees? And we think they are employees. And I can see in a lot of countries, Finland, Italy, they had courts who had said they are employees. And therefore you could discuss if we need a directive about it. If you have put them in a box, they are employed, they should be tackled as employees in the legislation in every country. So, but there is a problem about it, and then we are very afraid that if we don't manage to overcome the problem, we will have more working poor than we have today. So if it should be during a directive, we must discuss that. And in Denmark, we always have, we implement the directive by collective bargaining systems. And right now we are facing some problems in Denmark. We are trying to tackle them with collective bargaining, but I can see it's a problem other places. But I also can see a lot of my colleagues around Europe, they are trying to organize them, and they are trying to get them as employees. And I think it's very important that they are classified as employees and not self-employed, because then we will have huge problems with them.
So, Maria, the floor is yours to answer to the questions. There were more questions for you.
Yeah. Many thanks for this, and I will try to be as precise as possible. Regarding these possible differences between Nordic models, other models, and so on, I will speak mainly about platform work, but let me say a last thing about the wage, because first of all, I think that Bente is completely right when she underlines the need of supporting capacity building for collective bargaining, social dialogue to be more effective in all countries. This is, for me, a top priority. Second, I think that the social scoreboard, which will now be updated with new indicators, can also help to create the right kind of signals we need to show, well, in a country, we don't have a real possibility to have a living wage for a certain percentage of people. So if we have powerful indicators showing this can help. Third, about the political method to set a minimum wage. Of course, I understand your fears if the minimum wage is set by an authoritarian government. And this happened in the past, as Britta was referring. Nevertheless, let me refer to the Portuguese experience. Here, the government never sets the minimum wage alone. On the contrary, the first thing which is done is to listen to the social partners through a long consultation period and process. And once there is a sense of what is really a good solution, listening to both sides, social partners, then the final step can come through a government proposal going to the parliament. But let me underline that social partners play a central role all over the process. And I would like to, now I jump to the European level. Let me recall that according to the European approach, before any kind of discussion on directive, we should try, first of all, to have a European collective agreement. Because if a solution is found via European collective agreement, we don't need a directive. It is very simple, very important to underline this. So social dialogue is given a strong priority, always. Now, if I jump to a second topic, which is not minimum wage, is platform work. Look, I'm really worried with this because coming back to what Britta said about the seasonal work, okay? By that time, it was something important to be framed at European level because of geographical movements in the European single market for seasonal work. But my point now is that if you have platform work, you don't have geographical movement. People are staying where they are in their regions, but they compete at European level or global level. So this is a new trend in the labor market. They don't need to move, okay? But they will put in a situation where they compete to each other. And that's why I consider this extremely urgent. In my report to the European Parliament, when designing the social pillar, I put the finger on this. And I think I agree with Bente, most of these workers are employees, with a few exceptions. So it is a mistake to say they are, most of them, self-employed. No, they are workers, they are employees. And if they are employees, they should have a labor contract with the main issues of a labor contract, and they should have the opportunity to have access to reskilling. And third point, they should be connected to a social protection system, contributing to the system and benefiting from the system. This is extremely important because otherwise we run the risk of having our welfare systems with a weaker and weaker financial basis, and we have the risk of having a lot of people not covered by social protection, a kind of underclass. And this is moving extremely quick. Now with the pandemics, the number of people involved in platform work is even larger. And if we take into account telework, well, telework, which again was stepped up by the pandemics, makes many companies work as platform companies, you see. So the trend we had was accelerated in gigantic terms by the pandemics. And now we are saying, let's prepare the digital and green transition. Look, this is happening right now. Okay, so I think we need to have urgent coordinated action to do this, because I can tell you, otherwise you can have Danish workers working for a platform, wherever is the platform, by the way, competing with workers with the same kind of skills for a much lower wage in some European countries. And so I really believe this is a risk for the Nordic model, I can tell you.
Yeah,
so,
and
so what is, I call this digital social dumping.
I think it's a very good word, because we see now an acceleration on platform work. I heard the other day about a Danish company. They are conference organizers. They hire secretaries in Bulgaria, and the Bulgarian secretaries, they organize conferences in Oslo for them. So everything is cross-border. And but I think that Biden last week, he said that platform workers in the US now were considered as employees. And I also know the court in London decided that Uber drivers, they were also considered as. So we can do something for sure. But now time is running, and I still have a question here, and this is Nina Klausager. Are you ready, Nina?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. Yes, my name is Nina. I'm sitting here at the office of Nyt Europa. And thank you so much for a very informative and interesting debate, all of you. I wanted to ask about something a bit different, but quite unavoidable, I think, about the green transition. So how do you think we can secure a socially just work market that also is ecologically sustainable, as many people will have to leave their current jobs over the coming years to make sure that we don't create a new precarious group of workers who will have to get compensated somehow.
Thank you. Bente, will you start?
We have in the EU the Just Transition Funds, which we could use to reskilled and skilled people, so they could go from the black economy to the greener economy. And I think the skills agenda is very needed for all of us. In Denmark, we have skills during accounts during our collective bargaining system, so you can use your account you have beside your pension and use them to reskill and upskill, and we have some possibilities. But I know there's a lot of people who are they are afraid to get new skills, so they not will be left behind because they had a bad experience from the schools earlier in their lives, and therefore we need a very highly skills agenda in the whole EU, and I hope the money in the Just Transition Fund could be used in this, and also the money who should be used in more digitalization and the climate change, that we have those focus, so it could be more sustainable for the people, that they not are afraid to change jobs, because we need to change jobs all the time, and we must secure that we don't have poverty when we change those jobs. But I could say a lot more about platform work, because it is a very good discussion, and I hope really that we could make some changes on that agenda. But I hope it was a little bit of the answer you.
Yes, Maria.
Well, on this, many thanks for the question. I think that in the green transition, we can already predict that we have a completely different impact according to the sectors. And whenever we have activities which are with high carbon intensity, of course, they need to be transformed and replaced by other ones. And the jobs connected with these activities will be phased out. And so people working in these jobs, they need really to be strongly supported to move with jobs which won't have this problem. The other side of the coin is that the green transition is also an opportunity to create many new kinds of jobs. So provided we have a good innovation policy, sometimes industrial policy, these opportunities can be really maximized. So this should be organized according to clusters, to regions. And this is a very important challenge for the next years. But since we are talking about this, let me just allude to another thing, and I know that we don't have time, but I'd love to discuss this another moment with Danish friends, which is the impact of the digital in terms of artificial intelligence. I'm now working quite intensively on this, and my take on this is the following: is that when it comes to manufacturing, many jobs were already replaced by automation, robotization, and so on. This is quite advanced. But when it comes to services, we are still at the beginning, particularly if we have into account the impact of the artificial intelligence. Because artificial intelligence can replace many tasks of middle range workers, not just low range, middle range. And we need to have a discussion on what should be the European way to deal with this. Because I'm making a caricature, either artificial intelligence just replace jobs and that's it, or artificial intelligence is developed to complement jobs, to enrich the content of jobs. But this means that in this case, we need to develop a different kind of artificial intelligence according to a European model, which is not the American or the Chinese. And I would love to discuss this with Danish friends, because I know that, again, Denmark is advanced in this transition.
Thank you very much. Time is running. Yes, Denmark is advanced, but sometimes artificial intelligence is not advanced enough, because in a slaughtery, they had a robot cutting. But then came a new fashion in the way people want to eat the meats, and the robot could not be restructured for that because it only knew one action. So they had to invite the workers back again. And who does what? Nobody in Denmark don't like to work in a slaughtery. So this is one of the areas with more immigrant workers, and like in other countries with more corona infections, because they are put close together, like in the south of Portugal. Now you have the same problem with immigrant workers. So, but this should make me go on to the last very small question, because we have to a very small answer from you. What do you expect will be the next step in the social pillar?
Do you want me to come, or better?
Yes, you please, you can start. Yes.
Okay, look, I think the next step is to prepare new good recovery plans.
Yeah.
To deal with the COVID impact,
yeah.
and to use recovery to transform our societies with the green and digital transition. So this is again an operation where we need to have active collective bargaining and social dialogue.
Yes, and Bente?
I agree with what Maria had said. Is a huge agenda to recover, and therefore it will take a lot of times from the EU planning, and so I think it will. I hope it will lead us to a more greener Europe and a more digitized Europe and more fairer Europe than we have today, and maybe to the next summits.
So thank you very much. I'm so happy you could come, both of you. And now we hope in New Europe that you, Maria, we can invite you in person to come to Denmark when we are going to make the debates during the Future of Europe campaign. And then we will organize that you also meet some of the leading researchers in artificial intelligence, and you can come and visit some of the municipalities where they have done a lot of artificial intelligence integrated in the office workers' work. So a lot of things, and also the trade unions have a lot of policy on that. So we will be happy to see you here. But thank you very much for your participation. We are very happy. Thank you.
Oh, many thanks also for this opportunity, and looking forward to be with you physically. Yes, to visit Denmark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
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 Thank you.